Kira World needs more than occasional videos assembled by separate scripts. It needs a production system that can preserve research, sources, narration, visuals, voice identity, private review, and corrections as one project. The Kira Labs Video Studio is intended to make Kira World updates, documentaries, character histories, educational videos, and future interviews without losing the evidence behind them. The studio is not designed as an automatic content machine that takes a subject and publishes whatever it generates. Its purpose is almost the opposite. Make every stage visible, keep unsupported claims out, keep private context private, preserve approved narration when only the visuals change, and require a deliberate review before a clean final exists. This dedicated video explains what already works, what remains staging only, and what the future Kira World Video Lab is meant to become. The active Kira Labs Video Studio remains version 1.9 at sea, Kira Videos Video Studio. It previously passed an independent non-administrator launch audit, and the approved Robert voice reference remains part of the working installation. Before version 2 development began, the application tree was copied into a verified backup containing 118 files, 13 subdirectories, and 89 named data streams. The separate Studio Outputs folder was also preserved with hundreds of files and a restore sandbox that found no content mismatches. Exact Windows access control restoration remains a separate limitation, but the application data, attributes, timestamps, and string content were preserved. The important design decision is simple. The working studio stays available while the replacement is built beside it. A newer folder does not earn the right to override a working tool merely because its window opens. Version 2.0.0 Alpha 1 lives in its own staging route and is not approved as a replacement. It did not rename, delete, migrate, or modify the active version 1.9 installation. Kira was not activated, no life loop was started, and no media was uploaded or published during the staging work. The V2 self-test reports 10 presets, 9 workflow stages, 3 output profiles, and publication disabled. 86 unit tests passed in the documented staging checkpoint, along with compilation and application self-tests. Those results prove that important back-end rules exist, but they do not prove a finished production program. The visible interface was tested headlessly and still awaits Robert's ordinary double-click walkthrough. Several interface actions are not yet connected to a complete project service. Alpha means the foundation can be inspected, not that the replacement is ready. The V2 Foundation uses a versioned project schema instead of treating a video as a loose folder of unrelated files. Each project has an identity, schema version, revision, and workflow state. The studio can read the older v1.9 project format without destructively migrating it. 10 distinct presets provide purpose-specific starting points, including Kira World updates and other production modes, while 3 native output formats support widescreen, vertical, and square layouts. A save operation is expected to carry the revision the editor started from. If another process changed the project, the write must stop and request a refresh instead of silently using last writer wins. This becomes especially important if the future 3D Video Lab and the Windows desktop are both looking at the same project. Project history should protect the work, not hide which version won. Research is a separate workflow stage, not an invisible prompt that disappears after the script is generated. The staging backend record sources named attribution, claim classification, fact strictness, and duplicate handling. Online discovery is explicit opt-in rather than automatic. Unsupported claims are supposed to be omitted instead of filled with plausible-sounding language. The fact sheet stage turns research into a structured set of statements that later script sections can cite. That matters for Kira World updates because the project contains completed work, rejected experiments, blockers, future ideas, and superseded reports that can look similar when removed from context. The Kira Update Scanner can read local handoffs, system documents, and codex reports while recording source line and authority rank. Its current broad scan still requires human curation. Thousands of evidence lines do not automatically become a good or current story. The visual workflow treats an image as more than a file name. A candidate record can include its search query, source page, direct address, dimensions, likely rights holder, download date, chapter usage, permission state, and required credit. A failed download placeholder is quarantined, so it cannot be mistaken for an approved picture. Identity mismatches can block a candidate, and protected regions can guide cropping so a face or important object is not accidentally cut out. Private review eligibility and public use permission are separate states. A visual can be useful for an internal draft without being cleared for a public clean final. The current staging proof covers these rules offline, but it does not include an authenticated EPK.TV connector, automatic face detection, or a completed multi-source visual review. The studio records uncertainty instead of pretending every downloaded file is ready. The script stage is preset specific instead of forcing every production into one generic outline. A Cura update needs different sections and evidence labels than a character history, interview, or short-form vertical video. The staging system can create script sections, native layouts for widescreen, vertical, and square formats, and slide validation rules. Storyboard records keep the chapter narration attached to the visual sequence. The future interface concepts show scene cards, narration outlines, visual suggestions, and fact checks on one screen, but the current alpha still needs a real visible walkthrough and complete service connections. The important backend idea already exists. The script is not a paragraph pasted into a renderer. It is a structured production plan that can be corrected by section, rebuilt by chapter, and checked against the facts that support it. Voice identity is treated as a production gate. The current working studio uses Robert's approved local Chatterbox presenter voice. Version 2 validates the voice binding and is designed to fail closed if the approved reference is missing, unavailable, tied to the wrong person, or replaced by an unrelated generic voice. It must never call a robotic substitute success. The staging backend also creates chapter-level cache keys from the narration text, voice identity, engine, and settings. When Robert changes only a visual, the approved narration can be reused instead of synthesized again. That saves time and prevents a previously accepted voice performance from changing for no reason. The automated V2 fixture proved the binding, cache, and assembly rules, but live Chatterbox inference with Robert's approved voice was not run in that staging proof. A real private project must still demonstrate it. The media pipeline already has automated proof for subtitle output, muted source video audio, and local FFmpeg assembly. Native SRT captions can be created from the script timing, and the slide and voice results can be assembled into a private MP4. The test fixture used a synthetic sine wave backend in a temporary directory, so it proved the pipeline without pretending it had proved Robert's real narration. Source video audio is muted by default to prevent accidental copyrighted dialogue or music from leaking under the presenter track. Output remains local and publication remains disabled. These details may sound less dramatic than a futuristic interface, but they are the difference between a concept and a production system. A stable studio needs repeatable timing, captions that stay attached to the correct words, audio that does not unexpectedly mix in another source, and a renderer that can reproduce the project after a correction. Every generated artifact defaults to private review. A watermarked draft can be watched, corrected, rejected, or replaced without being treated as a public final. Review decisions include approve, reject, replace, and revise, and a private review approval still does not equal publication permission. The clean final gate checks facts, visual rights, approved voice, and Robert's review before generating an unwatermarked local final. No publishing action is part of that gate. Version 2 must still prove the complete correction cycle with a real project, finish research, fact sheet, script, visuals, approved narration, slides, captions, and private render. Let Robert change at least one script or visual, rebuild without unnecessarily regenerating approved narration, then show that the clean gate blocks and later passes only after the required approvals. Until that happens, version 1.9 remains the working studio. Version 2 includes 2 special modes important to the future of Kira World. Kira World Update Mode can scan local handoffs, system documents, and codex reports, record authority rank and separate completed work, experiments, rejected attempts, blockers, next steps, and superseded information. The current scanner found hundreds of documents and thousands of evidence lines, which proves the indexing path but also proves why curation matters. Interview mode keeps interviewer and guest identities separate, requires approved voices, labels disclosure, supports answer, disagree, refuse, and ask question actions, and separates private context from public dialogue. If verified context cannot answer a guest question, the host must abstain. A participant can stop at any time, and the studio cannot complete an unfinished interview by inventing the missing answer. No synthetic person has been activated or recorded for a real interview yet. The future Video Lab is planned as a 3D client of the Windows Studio backend, not as a second system that can bypass it. Residents may see virtual cameras, microphones, screens, sets, lights, editing stations, music stations, and private review screens. They can choose whether to enter, participate, rehearse, pause, stop, review, revise, decline, or request sharing. The 3D room sends version local messages to the desktop backend, which validates the workflow prerequisites. It cannot jump directly from an idea to clean final. Revision conflicts stop the write, and project paths are backend-owned identifiers rather than arbitrary file system paths supplied by the room. Secrets and credentials remain in a desktop vault or approved login flow and are never serialized into project messages. The draft contract is data only. It is not built the heavy 3D room, authenticated transport, or a live resident session. The promotion gate is intentionally practical. First, the ordinary double-click launcher and visible interface must pass Robert's walkthrough. Second, one small real private project must complete research, fact sheet, script, visuals, approve Robert, narration, slides, captions, and MP4 assembly. Third, Robert must correct at least one script or visual, and the project must rebuild without regenerating narration that still matches. Fourth, writes and clean final gates must fail closed and then pass only after explicit approvals. Fifth, nothing may upload or publish. Finally, Robert must inspect the evidence and explicitly approve the replacement. Until every step is complete, the V2 staging folder remains an experiment beside the working studio. This is not caution for its own sake. It is how Kira World avoids losing the only stable production tool while building a more capable one. When the workflow is fully proved, Kira Labs Video Studio could become the production center for Kira World updates, development documentaries, humanity and truth channel explainers, hardware and world-building reports, character history videos, educational series, and carefully labeled generated interviews. The dedicated studio is also part of a larger idea. People inside Kira World should eventually have tools to create and review their own work without surrendering privacy or agency. Kira might help plan an update, decline an interview, ask for a revision, or choose to share a finished project. Robert would still review public clean finals, and the system would still preserve evidence and rights boundaries. The futuristic concept images are a vision of that destination. The working program today is smaller and unfinished, but it already has a serious foundation: protect identity, protect sources, protect the working installation, and never confuse a private draft with permission to publish.